Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife review for you. Today we're looking at a Morgan Cohen's design, and a great one at that, built by Kansept. It is probably my favorite Kansept design at this point, although I do have something that is supposed to be here sometime not too far in the future that's also a pretty close contender for what'll be my favorite Kansept design. But this one, being from a fellow Canadian, has a place close to my heart. Also, being the size and overall design that it is, sort of with that traditional-ish flair, is highly, highly appealing to me. So, the first thing that I want to tell you about this knife is that you can't get one quite like this, and that's because this particular one had to have some changes made. All right. You may recall when I did my first impressions on this knife that the finishes were, I guess, unfortunate would be the way to put it. They had done sort of a lightning strike anno on this knife, and it was just not fantastic. It didn't go well with the fat carbon scales, and I think the fat carbon scales here, I don't remember all of them, but I think this happens to be Arctic Storm, and the only reason I remember that is a while ago Bradley Irwin used the same fat carbon for his 0470. Anyway, back to the discussion. I reached out to CKG with Canada Knife and Gear, and kind of put the feelers out to see who could refinish this knife for me, and a number of people came back recommending John Ouellette, and I'm probably saying that wrong. Ouellette, I don't know, whatever. Ouellette is what I'm going with. So I touched base with John. He was happy to do the work, and he did a phenomenal, phenomenal job, and it wasn't all that expensive. Confession time here. Yeah, I probably have too much money involved in this knife, but that said, I do love it, and I do really, really like the look of it now, after John got done with it. Yeah, totally impressive now. So that's sort of the little story behind this knife, and I guess part of this might be to say thank you to John for doing such a great work, and to highly recommend him if you've got a knife, even if it's just plain tie and you want to get something cool done to it. He really, really, really does a fantastic job. Very good attention to detail, very good overall uniformity on the finish. I mean, just really, really impressive stuff here, guys. All right, so now that we've kind of gotten the backstory out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the knife itself, beginning with the size and weight. So this is a big knife, 9 5/16 overall, 4 inches on the blade length there, 5 3/8 when closed. Okay, so 5 3/8 when closed. It's even big when it's closed, guys. 4 1/4 grip area, which is plenty for anyone that I've ever seen. I think a gorilla could probably hold this knife pretty comfortably. As you can see in my hand, I've still got like, half an inch or 3/4 of an inch left there for my hand to be even bigger than it is. Weight on this is 6 ounces, which is certainly not light, but for a knife of this size is not a big deal at all. So that's a quick rundown of size and weight. I have no complaints in that department whatsoever. Now, I like larger knives. I've got a bunch of larger knives here that I'm going to compare to this. So if you're one of these guys who, has to carry a knife that's like under 4 ounces or something, then, that this is not going to be the knife for you. All right. So let's talk about the blade. We've got this Damascus blade, and Kansept for their Damascus uses 9CR Damascus. You can see my reflection in it there from time to time. Okay, really nicely done. I like the variation in the pattern here. I like the overall blade shape. By the way, if we kind of pause for a second, realize that this blade would normally be 20 CV, even in plain 20 CV steel, with no fancy pattern or anything, I think this would still be a very, very nice looking blade, and the Damascus just makes it pop that much more. All right, there's a very slight recurve here, and I've seen that in a couple of these knives. Fairly thin behind the edge, reasonably thick blade stock, just around 1/8 of an inch, maybe a teeny bit over. Top swedge here on this clip point blade, and a good bit of belly out toward the tip. So Very nice blade shape, kind of a very traditional blade shape. If you look at Morgan Cohen's customs, he tends to, take the traditional blade shape and just exaggerate things a little bit. And it's really, really attractive. By the way, he's on my short list. I really, really would like a custom from him, especially a couple of his fixed blades stand out to me as being highly desirable. So that's the blade. A little bit of talk here about 9CR Damascus, and all I can say about it is it's fine. All right. In terms of the Damascus that's available out there that you're going to use for production knives, right, outside of custom makers who are making it themselves, this is a pretty good option. Obviously, you go to Chad Nichols, and then this knife would cost, at least $100 more, maybe more. But for a good, reliable cutting steel that's going to hold an edge reasonably well, 9CR 18 MOV is a good steel and nothing to sneeze at in terms of edge retention. And if you want to use your knife, you want some edge retention. And so, yeah, I'm happy with that. Although obviously, oh, and by the way, if you say, yeah, I just cannot, like I need the most edge retention imaginable in every knife that I have, then you're probably putting a lot of use on your knife, and you're probably not going with this kind of a fancy version anyway. But of course, if that was you, then you would look for the 20 CV option, which is what the standard version is. All right, let's talk a little about the action here. This is a really, really well done knife. It's very smooth, ceramic bearings, thumb stud deployment. You see, wow. You see one of the issues right there as we're sort of talking about this, and that is the unfortunate placement of the thumb stud. It's just a little too close, and I'm going to talk about that from two perspectives. First of all, it can be hard, I find, to get my thumb on that thumb stud. I wish there was just a little more room there between the handle and the thumb stud, and it's worse, at least for me, it's worse on the lock side. I almost can't open this left-handed. I think there we go. I can kind of get it done if I need to, but it's not easy to open left-handed because, again, that thumb stud is just a little too close. Now, in terms of the action itself, the feel, it's very smooth. The lock bar is very accessible. We've got, as expected, lock bar insert there. It's a bolster lock, so no need for an over travel stop, but it may, in fact, still have one. And yes, it does. You can see that if I angle it just right. So I want to digress for just a minute, guys. Please bear with me. If we made one slight change to this design, Morgan, please forgive me for criticizing in this way, but I do love the knife, and I think that's why I want it to be just the most perfect thing that's ever existed, and it's not quite there. So if we put the thumb stud up here and made it contact the frame and serve as an actual blade stop, one, that gives us extra stability in the open position, right? Because now this becomes a side-to-side stabilizer, and the tension of the lock bar pushes the blade into a more solid position. So it sort of builds this little triangle, and I've talked about that before in videos. So I really, really like that. In order to contact up here, the thumb stud would have to be moved up and back. And what that would translate to here is up and back right around here, giving me a lot more room to get my thumb in there. All right, so I think a simple move of that thumb stud would benefit this knife a whole lot. All right, now, having said that, I can get the knife open. You just saw me open it. I'd say 85% of the time, maybe more, maybe 95% of the time, I open the knife, do what I need to do with it, and close it and move on and have no issues. However, that 5% of the time, it's usually if my hand's a little bit wet or a little bit rusty or anything like that. That's when I get so frustrated, and I'm thinking to myself, the next time I see Morgan, I'm going to say, move that stupid thumb stud. Anyway. This happens to me once in a while, and I'm sure only knife reviewers do this. But yes, from time to time, I I think to myself, oh man, this thumb stud drives me crazy. Most of the time, I'm totally happy with it because it works just fine. All right. So now that I now that I've completely gone off the rails and complained and griped and whined about this, let me say that I don't have a huge issue with it. Most of the time, it's fine. And I think if I carried this knife every single day, which I don't, I would quickly get used to just remembering. I would naturally kind of tuck my thumb in here. And, if you kind of angle your thumb and tuck it in, then it works every time. And it's quite fast and quite comfortable. It's just that I don't always remember to do that because I don't carry this knife every single day. I carry a bunch of other knives as well, which sort of changes the way your muscle memory works. All right. So, back to the knife in question. Let's talk about this handle. The fat carbon fiber is fantastic. The finish that John put on this is also fantastic. The pocket clip is great. It's a milled titanium clip that goes in and out of pocket well and definitely has enough room for even my, if I'm wearing 511s or something like that, works just fine. All right, very, very nicely done in that regard. Now, what about the feel in hand? Yeah, it is really, really good. This is a knife that feels exceptionally good in hand. And, you can't say that for all knives with this one. Yeah, the ergonomics are really, really good, even though it has certainly been thinned out. Like, this is not, for a knife of this size, it's pretty slim, making it, reasonably comfortable in pocket, and yet they still kept it pretty comfortable. And I'm sure, Morgan had a lot to do with that thought process. So, great ergonomics, great handle design, great overall design in terms of looks. And this one with the finishes that are on it now looks fantastic. Now, I should say, there are a bunch of finishes for this. I mean, there are micarta handles. There's a long list. I'm not even going to try to give you. I think there are even different color of micarta. There's carbon fiber. There's a bunch of stuff. Okay, so I'll just, if you're interested in this design, look it up, and I'm sure, I'm sure that you'll be able to find one that's suited to your particular taste. All right, so handle, yes, very good, very comfortable. Blade, yes, very, very slicey, very enjoyable. The Damascus looks great. The overall knife here looks really, really good now that John has done his work. So I'm happy with all of that. My minor complaint there was the location of that thumb stud, and it could just be tweaked a little. Maybe they'll do a version 2. I say this a lot. It never happens, guys, so don't hold your breath, but I'm going to say it anyway. Yeah, make that modification, make a version 2 of this knife, and it would be even that much more fantastic. And they're already selling well, so tweak it just a little, and I think it'd be even better. Finally, let's get to some comparisons. This is a big, fancy, expensive titanium frame lock, and I have a few of those. That's kind of my bread and butter, guys. So let's go ahead and look at some big, cool knives. Starting off with the Spartan Harsey. This is, of course, the full-size titanium folder. This is an older version. I think it's like from 2016 or something like that. So, it's a few years old, but still really, really cool. And, kind of has a similar appeal for being just tough and big and just overall a cool knife that's simultaneously a good work knife, but also kind of fancy and interesting. Clearly, the Harsey, by the way, is going to be more expensive. Let's throw in the zero tolerance, 0308. There are a number of ZTs we could put in here, but 308 is kind of a nice model. It captures some of the old, some of the new, and lands in a nice spot for me. And so, yeah, the 308 is a good comparison, and it's, again, right in my wheelhouse, has all the kind of same levels of appeal that this knife has to me, although it's a little more on the maybe working man's side. All right, might be a little more expensive as well. Chris Reeve knives in Cosi with that gorgeous, gorgeous Tanto. You can see, like, this is not a small knife, but you can see that it's just dwarfed by the Shikari. So that gives you a good idea of size in case those numbers that I threw at you earlier didn't make a whole lot of sense. Although it is certainly not my largest knife, let's throw in the Cold Steel 4MAX, which is another knife on my short list of favorites. I do love the 4MAX a whole lot. It's heavier, it's bigger, no question about any of that stuff. Not necessarily appealing to the same group of people, but maybe. Okay, so there's the Formax. And finally, a knife that I think is quite similar in design and even purpose. We have the Benchmade Crooked River, similar size, similar philosophy, if you will. Another knife that I absolutely love. So that's the other fun thing about this video. It gives me a really good excuse to pull out all these knives. I don't get to carry all of these every day. I do have one other knife that I want to show you, but these are all knives that I just totally, totally love. Finally, let's throw in the Best Tech. Now I can't think of the name of this knife, Falco or something like that. Sorry about that. If you want to know what that Best Tech is called, look down in the description. I know there'll be like 100 people correcting me, so go ahead and check out the name of the Best Tech. But it's a really cool knife. It's an Icoma design and another pretty exciting option for big, fancy, awesome knives. Okay, so those are some comparisons for you. Let me draw some conclusions about this. If you haven't already figured it out, I do really, really like this knife. So much so that I'm willing to overlook that one little issue that I mentioned there, which, I mean, is not that little. The thumb stud placement is actually pretty important in terms of practical application and how this is going to perform day to day. But again, my argument with myself about that is, when I carry this knife, I don't usually have a big problem with it. It's normally fine. All right. So, well, I would like to see that thumb stud move just a little bit. I'd especially like to see it moved here so that it created a stop pin as well. The other thing I might like to see on this is dual row ceramic bearings. They're becoming more and more common, even on budget knives. So I'd like to see it happening more often on the fancier stuff as well. But overall, I love the size of this. I love the look of it. I love the performance of this. I enjoy carrying this to no end. And if you want one, go over to White Mountain Knives and check it out. I think Justin has some in stock. If not, these can be a little tough to get. So, in that case, probably your best bet is to, fill out the little form, put in your email, notify me, blah, blah, blah. And you'll probably have to do that on a few different websites if you want to pick one up. Of course, it's probably worth waiting for Justin to get more in stock because of the fact that you get to save a little bit of money by using that discount code. All right, guys, thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, that is, and we will talk to you soon.